Welcome back to another project. In this project, we are going to create a basic calculator. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have a modern designed calculator with the numbers, operators, the equal sign, and the C clear button. So we can just write down our arithmetic equations and expression. We just write down, for example, 45 plus 42, and we get the results. We can just multiply down to another number. And also we can clear the screen. So this is very simple calculator. We're going to use some built-in functions of JavaScript called eval to evaluate the expression inside the input. We're going to learn how to add an event listener to these buttons using for loop. And we're going to learn how to design this one with a modern styling using CSS. As you can see, we have some hovering effect, and also we have some shadow effect inside and outside some elements. In the next section, we're going to start with the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, let's start our project. I have put the final version here for our comparison. So we can just compare our design with the one that is already completed. So as you can see, we can just use this design. And the first things we want to do is to create the HTML part of the project. So we just need to have these numbers, these letters, this equal sign. And also we want to create a div here that is covering all of them. And then we also need to add some input here. So what we want to do here, first we want to create an HTML file. So first we go and open our Visual Studio Code. I would like to use Visual Studio Code as my text editor, but you can create anything you want. You can create it in any text editor that you are familiar with. So first thing first, you just click on File and go to Open Folder. So we're gonna create a new folder for our projects. I want to create it inside my desktop. So let's create a new folder, and we're gonna call the name of the projects and set the name of the folder to be basic calculator. So I'm gonna write down basic calculator here, basic dash calculator. And after creating the folder, we're going to click on the select folder to select this folder. And this is going to open the Visual Studio Code again, but in the Explorer section, you see that the basic calculator folder is open, and we can just create our files here. So all the files goes inside this folder. Let's close the Welcome tab, and here we just create a new file by clicking on this file, New File, or you can do it by just right click and click on New File. We just need to call our HTML file. The extension should be HTML. But the name can be anything, but we just call it index.html. So this file is now empty, but we can use an exclamation mark to have a boilerplate. So when you have an exclamation mark, the emit abbreviation is going to suggest you this boilerplate, which gives you the first template for your website, including a title. So just click on the first auto suggestion. And this is going to have our boilerplate, which includes the doc type. Doc types tells the browser which version of HTML we are using. We write down here HTML. If you're using HTML5, you need to just write down HTML here. After that, we have the HTML tag, which includes the head tag and the body tag. The lang attribute here defines the language of the page and tells the browser which language the page is written in. In our case is English. And after that, we have the head tag, which sets the metadata tags and the title tag. The first metadata tag sets the charset attribute, which is UTF-8 in our case. UTF-8 is recommended by HTML5 because it nearly contains all the characters and symbols, and the users of our website won't have any problem seeing the website and reading our contents. The next metadata data tag is for the compatibility, and especially is for Internet Explorer users. So it tells the Internet Explorer to use the recent rendering engine, which is Edge. So Microsoft Edge is not supporting Internet Explorer anymore. So the Internet Explorer is going to use the Microsoft Edge engine instead. Then we have the viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the screen to device's width. So what that means is when you have a user which is using, for example, a mobile phone, the width of the browser is going to be smaller than another user is using the desktop or laptop screen, which is a bigger screen. So this is going to automatically adjust the width of the browser. Then we have the initial scale, which is initial zoom level of the browser. And here it is set to be 100%, we can just set it to be 1, which is equal to 100%. And then we have the title tag, which is going to set the title of the browser. So now let's open our website inside the browser so we can see this title, where I'm going to use an extension called Live Server, which is going to create a server for us. So if you have this extension, you're going to see this go live here at the bottom. So we can click on this button, and this is going to open the website inside a server called 5500 with the port 5500, and the page is open, index.html, and the title is document. Here at the top you can see it is document, but we can change the title here to the name of our project, which is the basic calculator. And when we change this one, this extension is going to automatically change everything inside the website, which is now you can see this is basic calculator. So what we want to do here, like the final version, we're going to have a div here, input, and some buttons. Okay, so let me show you here. So we're going to have one container here, which is a div with a class of, for example, calculator. Then we have an input. Then we have another div with a class of buttons. Let me show you with a different color. So this div is with the class of buttons, and we're gonna have these buttons inside this calculator. Each of them is a button, and they have a different class. For example, the number has the class of number, the operator has a class of operator, then we have equals, and finally we have the clear. So let's do this one. Let's bring the website to the right side so we can see the changes in real time. Then let's bring the Visual Studio Code on the left side using the window and the left arrow button. Let's close the Explorer section. And here inside the body section, we're going to create our HTML tags. The first one, as I mentioned, it's a div with the class of calculator. So we just write down dot calculator. So when you write down dot calculator, this is going to suggest you a div with a class of calculator. If you press enter, you can accept this suggestion. Now we have that div. And then inside the div, we're going to have an input. So we're going to have an input. The type of the input is text. And we're going to have an ID for that one, which is going to be result, because we want to later target this one using JavaScript. So we need this ID. And also we can, what I want to do here, I want to make this one read only. So when this one is read only, what it does, the read only should be outside. So this is a result, and outside we have read only. Read only makes this one just a display. You cannot type anything inside this. If you don't have read only, you can type inside the input. So we want to prevent typing inside the input. We just write down read only here, because we want to have just write down here using the keyboards. Okay, so after that, we're going to have a div. Inside this, we're going to have a div with a class of buttons, which all the buttons is going to be inside this div. So the first button is going to have the class of clear, and which is going to have the letter C. And this one should be a button, not the div. So I'm going to create a button for it. So as you can see, we have the button now. Next things we need is a button. These actually, the order of buttons is important to have the same structure. So we have C, we have / for the division, Then we have for the multiplication, we have star. We should just do it like this. It goes this way. Okay, even after 6, we see the equal, and then 1, 2, 3, 0, and the decimal point. So the order should be like that. So in order to achieve the same result, so this button is going to have a class of operator, and this is going to be / for division. We're going to have 2 more operators. So I'm going to copy this one using Alt-Shift-Arrow done. The second one is the multiplication sign, the star sign, and then we have minus. Okay. After that, we're going to have the 7, 8, and 9, which would be a button with a class of a number and just the number 7. And then we can copy this one 2 more times using Alt-Shift-Arrow done. And then this is going to be 8, and this is going to be 9. Okay. After that, we have the plus sign, which is a operator as well. So we're just gonna add a button with the class of operator, and this is going to be the equal sign. Then we have 4, 5. Sorry, this one is plus sign because after 9 we have plus. Then we have 3 more button numbers. So we're going to have a button with a class of number again. So number, this is going to be 4. Copy. Let's copy this one, and we just say 5, and this is 6. After that, we have the equal sign, which is a button with a class of operator again. So for the equal, we don't say operator, we say equals. Okay, and then this is going to be equal. And finally, we have numbers 1, 2, 3, and 0. As you can see here, 1, 2, 3, and 0. So we just will have to create another button with a class of number. And this is going to be 1. Let's copy this one 3 more times. So 1, 2, 3, and finally 0. And after that, we're going to have another button, but this time with a class of decimal. And this is going to be a dot, a period. Okay, so we have just created our HTML file with our buttons, divs, and etc. So, but the style is completely just a HTML, pure HTML. We're going to create this amazing and beautiful modern design using CSS in the next section. So in the next section, we're going to work on the styling part of the project using CSS. So see you in the next section. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. We just created these buttons, the numbers, the equals, the clear sign. And in this section, we're going to create and style our project using CSS. If you look at the final version, you can see that we have kind of modern design with some shadow effect for the input, but inside. For the buttons, we have also some hover effect, some transition, and also we have some shadow effect as well. So we're going to create and achieve this one using CSS. So first things we need to do is to create a CSS file. So we need to go to Visual Studio Code, and we can just open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here we just create a new file, and we just name the file style.css. And before using the CSS file, we need to add a link to the CSS file inside the HTML file here at the top. So after the title, we're going to have a link tag. So the link tag is going to be just, we just write link, and then we click on this third auto suggestion, the one with the CSS. This is going to automatically create the link tag for us for this file, style.css. And here href is just an address of this file, because both files are inside a same directory, which is the basic calculator. So for the address, we just need to have style.css, and this is just a relationship between the HTML and the style sheet here. So now we can start styling our project using CSS. The things I want to do first is just first I want to some basic styling add to everything here. You just add a star sign. What I want to do is to change the box sizing to border box. What this one does is by setting box setting, this border box is going to ensure that the padding and the borders that we add to the elements will be included in the total size. If we don't have this one, we're going to have problem styling our inputs. So later I'm going to show you if you don't have that one, what happens to our styling. And also we want to remove the basic margin of the page, and we set it to be 0. In this case, we're going to remove the margin around the elements. So let's bring this one to the right side so you can see the changes simultaneously. And here we can just close the Explorer section so we have more space. After the basic styling, we're going to start with the calculator div, which we have here, the div that is covering everything. We're going to style that one. We just can target that one by just writing down dot calculator. Because this is a class, we can simply target this class using dot calculator inside the CSS. So what I want to do is first I want to change the background color to be a light gray color, which is with this code F2, F2, F2. As you can see, the color is a bit different now. Then we're going to have some padding. So this is going to push everything inside. We just set the padding to be 20 pixels. And then we're going to have some margin. First, we want to set the maximum width to be 400 pixels, which is going to, as you can see, limit the size to be 400 pixels. But we want to center this. We want to bring this one to the center here. So what we do here, it's very simple. We just change the margin, the top and bottom to 0, but we add auto to left and right, which is going to make a equal margin to the left and right for us, which we are going to, which can be centered easily here. So after the margin and bring this container to the center, let's add some border to it. So what border we want to add is going to be a solid border, which is just a line, and then it's going to be 1 pixels, and the color for that one is going to be CCC, which is a darker gray than the background color. And we want to add some box shadow as well. What box shadow does is we want to just have 0 for the x-axis shadow, 2 pixels for the y-axis. So you see the y-axis we have shadow, 5 pixels for blurriness of the shadow, and then we want to have some RGBA because we don't want to have a dark color. We want to have some RGBA is a combination of colors, which is red, green, and blue, alpha. So we're going to set these values, and this is going to give us a color, and alpha is the transparency level, the opacity level. So 0, 0, 0, 0 for the black color, and 0.3 for opacity. So RGBA, not RPG, RGBA, this is correct. So red, green, blue, alpha. So we have now a beautiful shadow effect. And also we want to have some border radius. We want to make the corners to be rounded, so which is going to be more beautiful. So we're going to have some border radius, and this is going to be, for example, 5 pixels. So you should see the border radius here if I zoom it. And that's it for the calculator. So we just want to, another things I want to add is the margin top. So we want to add some space at the top. This is going to be 30 or 40 pixels. That would be enough. So that's it for the calculator container. Now we want to style this input here. We can target the input by its ID because it has the ID of result. We can target that one here by using a pound sign, and we just say result, and we open a set of curly braces. And here, what I want to do is to set the width to be 100% like this. And we add some padding of 10 pixels. So it's gonna have more space inside. And let's change the font size to be 24 pixels. It's going to make the size of the text to be bigger, but we don't see anything because we haven't applied the JavaScript, which is going to get all these buttons and show it here. And we want to remove the border. We set the border to be none, but instead of the border, we want to have some shadow effects. So it's going to be like it has a shadow, but the shadow is going to be inside, not outside. So we add some box shadow similar to here. Actually, we can use the same color. So I'm going to copy this one. So we get the 0 for the x-axis, 2 pixels for the y-axis, 5 pixels for blurriness, and this color. But this, as you can see, the shadow is outside, but I want the shadow to be inside. So we just add here inset. As you can see now, the shadow went inside. That's going to just show like depth for our styling. And also we can add some border radius of 5 pixels, which is going to have some corner border for the design. So that's it for the input section. And I want to show you, if you don't have that box sizing, what happens. So if you remove the box sizing, as you can see, the input is going to be, the padding is going to be applied extra for the, so this box sizing was very important for styling something like the input. So let's bring back the box sizing for the box. So, and let's continue styling now the buttons. So first thing first, we want to target this div, which is covering all the buttons, the div with a class of buttons. So here we just say dot buttons. We open a set of curly braces, and here I want to use the display grid. So we make this one grid. What the display grid does, so it's going to make a grid for us. First is just a grid with the each button went to a one row completely, but we're going to design it in a different way. We want to change the the grid template columns. We want to repeat it 4 times, and this is going to be 1FR. So 1FR, what is the meaning of 1FR? I'm going to explain you here. So this total grid template columns repeat for 1A is a CSS property that sets the size of each column in a grid container. So in this case, in our case, the repeat for 1FR value creates a grid with 4 equal size columns. As you can see, we have 4 equal columns. And what FR means here, FR unit stands for fractional unit and is used to divide the available space. So whatever available space we have here, it is going to be for us. So it's going to calculate the available space, and it's going to create 4 columns based on this available space for us. So with this one, we are going to have a grid container. This grid is going to divide into 4 equal size columns, which is what we want for our calculator layout. So, all right, so now we want to have some space between the buttons. So we're going to have a grid gap. Let me find it. So we just say grid dash gap, which is going to be equal to 10 pixels. We're going to have some 10 pixels between the gaps, okay? And also we want to add some margin at the top for 20 pixels, okay? So it looks better than before, but we're gonna install each button separately. First, we're gonna install the button, all the buttons, and then we're gonna have some special buttons like the clear and etc. So we're gonna have a different color for example, the equal. But just first install each of them. So we're gonna target this button. So the button is the tag is button, so we can simply target that one without any dot or pound sign. We just write down button. So this is going to target all the buttons. And let's add some padding to the button of 10 pixels. And let's change the font size to be 24 pixels. So make them bigger. Let's remove the border. So this is the things we want to do. Remove the border, but we want to add some box shadow. So this is a trick we do to make a beautiful design. We remove the border, but instead we add box shadow. The same system, 2 Z for the horizontal offset, 2 pixels for vertical offset, 5 pixels for blurriness radius, and then we have RGBA of 000 for black color and 30% transparencies, which is going to give us this design. Let's add some border radius of 5 pixels, so we're going to be consistent in all design. Let's set the cursor to be pointer, so when we hover over the button, we see a pointing hand. And let's make this one with it. What I want to do is to create a hover effect. In the final version, when we hover over it, we see a different color. So how we achieve this one, it's we add a button and we just say hover, and we can just change the background color to be this color, DDD, which is a darker gray color. But this is going to change the color very fast. So in order to prevent that one, we're going to use the transition on the background color. So background dash color. And then the transition duration is going to be 3.3 seconds and with the ease effect. So this is going to change it a little bit more smooth. So that's it for creating and styling all the buttons. Now we want to individually target each button. The first things I want to apply is the clear button. The clear button has the class of clear. So we can target that one using dot clear. We're going to open a set of curly braces. We just change the background color to be FF4136, which is kind of red color. For the color of the text, we're going to use the white color, which is FFF. Okay. This is similar to the final version. I see the equal sign is bigger, so we're going to fix it soon. Next, we want to apply style the numbers. So the numbers had the class of numbers, so we just write down number here. As you can see inside the index.html, all the numbers has the class of numbers, so we can target all of them using dot number. So background color for them is different. They are going to be FF4136. This one going to be white, FFF. So that was for the clear. And so we're gonna have a white color for the buttons. So actually the decimal is similar to that one. So for decimal, actually maybe we don't need to have a different class. We can just say dot name number and dot decimal. So we can just target both of them. And also we want to change the color of the text to be 333, which is kind of dark gray. And then we want to apply the operators. We just say dot operator, because all of the operators like minus, division, they have the class of operator. So we can simply style them. We want to change the background color to be FF. So let me check 0074 D9, which is a blue color. And the color of the text is white, which is FFF. So finally, we want to style the equal sign. The equal was equals. So the equal sign has the class of equals. We target that one. The background color is going to be green, which is 01 FF70. The grid row, because we want to have this one to be extended in 3 rows. So what we do here, we just write down grid dash row, and then we just say expand. So just expand this one for 3 rows. This is going to expand it for 3 rows. As you can see, it's very simple to work with the display grid. For design, it's something like a calculator. Then we have the color, which is white color, FFF. So that's it. That's it for the styling of our calculator. And this is going to be actually responsive as well. We have mobile size and big size. We have the same design. As you can see, it has its nice in different zoom level. We can actually have this design. So that was it for creating and styling our projects using CSS. In the next section, we're going to add the functionality to the project using JavaScript. We're going to have some add event listener to each of these buttons. So we're going to get all this information, and we're going to trigger a function which is going to calculate the result and show it here at the top. And also we're going to add some clearing effect here using this C button. So this is going to be very simple, but we're going to use a new method from JavaScript called, this is for calculating, we're going to use a function called eval. So I don't think most of the calculator I see on the internet, they just calculated manually themselves, but there is a new JavaScript method for calculating operations, which I'm going to show you in the next section. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS section of our project. We have styled our project like this. In this section, we're going to add more functionality to our project using JavaScript. We're going to add the functionality of calculating the numbers, multiplication, division, and etc. So the first things we need to do is to create a JavaScript file inside our project. So we come back to Visual Studio Code, and simply we open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here on the left side in the Explorer section, which is in our projects folder, Basic Calculator, we're going to create another file, and we're going to call it, for example, script.js or index.js, or the most common naming convention is index.js or script.js, or some people, they call it app.js. It's totally up to you. So I'm going to call it index.js. And like this, the things we did for this styled CSS, we need to add a link to this file within the HTML code. So we need to come back to the HTML file. This time, instead of adding it to the head section, we need to add it at the end of the body section, because we need all these elements to be loaded first inside the browser, and then we can have access to them using JavaScript. So we need to add the JavaScript at the end of the browser, at the end of the body section. So we're going to call it, we just write down SC, and we click on the second auto suggestion, the one with the src. This is a script tag which is going to connect us to the any scripts like a JavaScript file, and src here is the destination of the file. And for us, because both files are located at the same directory, the src would be index.js, which is the name of the file, and that is enough for the destination of the file. Now we can use the JavaScript in our projects. The first things we need to do is to bring the elements inside the JavaScript so we can have access to them, to add some functionality there. For example, these buttons, we want to add an add event listener to each of them using JavaScript. So we need to have access to this div with the class of buttons. So we can add actually individually and add event listener to all of them, but there is a simpler way. For example, we can make a for loop inside this div, and we can simply just target each of them inside here. So what we do here is we can select all the elements with the tag of button. For example, here inside the index.js, we just create a constant and we call it buttons, plural button. We just say buttons, elements. We want to get all of them. So we can target the document because we want to check all the document, all the browser, and then we can use the query selector all because we want to select everything with the tag of button. Okay, so now if we, for example, console log buttons element, I'll copy this and put it here. And if we just open the console using F12, and then if you refresh the page, we can see that we got all the buttons here, which is 17 node list. So we got all the 17 buttons. as you can see, this is just we have 10 numbers plus 4 operators, 14, and 15 is 16. It's 11 numbers, so 70, because we need to include decimal as well. So we have all the buttons now. We can have access to them. So each of them, as you can see, some of them, they have a class of clear. Some of them, they have a class of operator. So what we do here, we add an event listener to each of them. So let's delete this console log, and instead, I'm going to create a for loop. The fourth loop, we're going to create a variable called I, which is going to start from 0. And then this I is going to continue until the end of the buttons, which is 17. But we can just say buttons element dot length. So we get the length of this button elements, which is 17. So this one should be less than this. So buttons element, that is correct. And we want to add this one, actually should be a semicolon. And then we get another semicolon, and then we just say increase the I each time only 1. So we just say I plus plus. So I starts from 0, goes 1, 2, 3 until the length of these buttons, which is 17. So it starts from 0, goes to 16. So totally we have 17 iteration. So it starts from 0, goes until 16, and we have totally 17 iteration. And in each iteration, we want to add to each button an event listener. So we just target this button's element. We want to target each of them. So we just say we added we add a bracket, and then we just add I. We got the I element, which can be 0, 1, 2 until 16. So, and then we're going to add an event listener using add event listener method. The event listener we want to add is click. So each time a person click, we want to trigger a function. So we're going to create a function here. So each time someone click on a button, we want to trigger a function. And then we want to get the value of the button. For example, what we want to do here is, for example, if we console log button, this button element I dot text content, the text which is inside it, for example, in index.html, the text inside the clear button is C. For this one is division, and then multiplication, and then 7, 8. So now we're going to console log that. So let's open the console again. We go to console here. So now each time I click on a button, for example, I click on 0, we get 0 because we are getting the text content of that button. So 2, 3, we can get the equal sign, plus, minus, all of them are working, even the C we get. So we have the value of them. So instead of console logging, I'm going to set this one equal to, and just call it button value equal to this. So we have the button value, and then we're going to add some condition. We just say if the button value is equal, for example, to C, just call a function called clear, for example, results. So each time someone press on C, call this function, but we have to create this function. So we're going to create a function, and the function's name is going to be clear result. For now, we just create the function so we don't get an error. But later we're going to add the functionality inside the function. So let's continue and complete this if statement. The other condition I want to add, we just say else if. So another condition is if the button's value is equal to equal signs, equal. If this one happens, call another function, which is calculate results. Let's create the function here again, so we don't get an error. So let's create the function and we call it calculate result, and just keep continue for the if statement. The next one is otherwise, so it can be a number, okay? Otherwise can be 0, 1, 2, or decimal. In this case, just add this result, add this value, this button's value to the display. So we want to show it inside the display here, and also we want to append it there. So we're going to call it this function append value, and we're going to pass this button value. And let's create this function as well here. So we're going to create another function called append value. Okay. So we have these three conditions. If the value is C, we're going to clear the result. If it is equal, we're going to calculate the result. Otherwise, we want to append the value. So first we start with the append value. So the append value, we're going to get the value, the button value here. We're going to get it as an input of the function because we are passing it here. We get it as an input, and this time we need to have access to this input. So we can write it inside the input. So if you look at the index.html, the input is just an input tag with an ID of result. We can target this one using this ID. So at the top, we're going to target and get that element and bring it here. So I'm going to call this one input field element. And this is going to be equal to document. We want to target all the browser, and then we can use the method called get element by ID. And the ID of this input was result. So the ID is result. So we can simply target that on just writing down result. So now we have access to this one. Inside the append value, we want to target that result, what's what we call it, result field, input field element. And then we're gonna set the value of this button, value of this input equal to this button value we get. But we don't want to make it equal to this one. We want to add the new value to the previous one. So what we do here, we add a plus equal sign. So for example, this value is 2 and the next value is 3. This is going to be 2, 3. So I'm going to show you now inside our application. If you just write down 1, we see 1 here. So 1 is going to stay here. And then when we press 2, 2 is going to be added to the 1. So 1, 2. So otherwise, if you just write down equal, this is going to be 4. If you write down 5, it's going to be replaced by the 4. 6, 3. So in order to keep the previous one, we add the plus sign. So this is kind of similar to, we just say equal this value plus this. So this is a shortcut for this one. This is going to work this similar way. Say 1, 5, 2. So I'm gonna just copy this one, and then I show you the both way. So plus equal, and then I'm gonna just comment this one for your reference so you know that this is similar to this. Okay, so now we have the value, the input field value. What we want to do is when we click on the plus sign, we want to evaluate, we want to calculate the result. So inside the calculate result function, we're going to use, we want to just say that input field element dot value. We want to replace this one with something called evaluate. Evaluate is a function, is a built-in function of JavaScript that evaluates a string as if it's like a JavaScript code. For example, if we evaluate, for example, 2 multiplied by 5, and if we come back here and we press equal, we get 10. So we get the result of this, we just get the result of this string, whatever it is. So for example, this one plus 1, we get 11, okay? So what we want to calculate is this input field value. Whatever is inside the input, we want to evaluate it and show it inside this input field value. So for example, we just write 45 plus, for example, 5. If we click on now equal, we get 50 instead. All right. So, and then for example, now we have the 50 multiplied to 5. For example, we get 250. So this equal sign is going to evaluate whatever inside this. So evaluate is actually can be used to evaluate an arithmetic expression entered by the user and return the result. So I give you an example too. So now you understand the evaluate. Some people, they want to create the calculator. I saw online that they calculate each of them separately. For example, they add a condition. They said if this operator is multiplication, you multiply it. Just a nonsense. Too many if they add, but they can simply use eval to evaluate the whatever inside this. So this was the trick I show you, and the final things is left is this C button. When we click on the C button, we want to clear this input. So inside the clear result, we're going to just set this input field element dot value. We want to set this one to an empty string. So we want to set it to an empty string. So for example, if we now have something, we press C, we completely remove it. So now we calculate something, we see the result, and then we can just simply clear that. So that was a very simple calculator. This is very simple. You can add parentheses, for example. If you have parentheses, you can have more complex things, and you can add it, for example, deleting the last letter. So that is the last number. That is very simple too. For example, we write down 45, we can delete only 5, but we added another button, we add a function, and instead of adding that button value, we want to remove the last button value. So you can just do that one as your practice, and you can share it with me as well. So that was it for our projects, creating a simple and basic calculator. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. So we have learned the function eval. We have learned how to add an event listener to a bunch of buttons using for loop, and how to clear, calculate, and append a value. So see you in the next section for another project.